Tips on what to do about deficiencies in the home inspection. So correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but this is when somebody hires you to go out and do the inspection, they're looking at buying this home and, okay, there's a list of things here that are problematic and potentially you want them to be fixed or, want some sort of credit from the seller in order to get them fixed.
The first thing before we even get to the home inspection, and this is for all of the realtors that are out there listening to the show, and hopefully there's a lot of you guys out there, is you got to manage the expectations for the buyer. A lot of buyers don't know what happens during a home inspection. And one of the biggest questions that we get asked once we're a few minutes in or a half an hour into the inspection by the buyer is, well, we're going to get the sellers to fix all this stuff, right? Well, not necessarily. You have to understand that every defect that we come across has its own kind of dynamic, if you will. So if we're inspecting brand new construction, yeah, the seller's going to fix everything because you're buying a brand new house and everything should be perfect. Great. But if you're buying a used house, which is a house that somebody has lived in for any period of time, could be 5 years, 10 years, heck, it could be 200 years. There's a certain amount of items that are generally considered normal wear and tear that we will probably still identify and even identify them as defects, but you can't really expect that you're going to be taking in a perfect house when you buy a house that's older.
What are some of the things in your mind that you think are worth it for a buyer to negotiate with the seller on?
If the item falls into one of these categories, if the item is expensive and it makes it impossible for you to insure your house, impossible for you to finance the house because some defects will affect your ability to get a loan, it makes it to where you cannot maintain the house, or it creates a risk of personal injury or more significant damage to other components of the house. Those are the things I like to tell people. That's your sweet spot. So if it falls into one of those categories, then it's something that you really should be considering trying to negotiate. Things that come up in, that people tend to, I call it kind of like the nitpicky requests. Like, all right, like if you have some windows that, you're buying a house, original windows, houses from 1980, some of the thermal seals might be starting to fail, so the windows are fogging, or some of the doors kind of rub or don't latch real smooth. Things like that still make the report because they're items that are technically not functioning the way they're intended, but it doesn't really affect the value of the house. It's not a safety concern. It's not going to hurt anybody, and it's not going to ruin other stuff if you leave it that way. Dings in vinyl siding, some shingles on the outside, if it's wood siding that are starting to lift a little bit, but still have a lot of life left in them. Those are kind of your wear and tear items that are, those are items you should expect that a seller's not going to want to negotiate that stuff. If they disclose things, they're not going to want to negotiate something they disclose. So let's just say, for example, they give you a very detailed disclosure. The seller gives that to the buyer, and it says heating system is original to the house. So you're buying a house that's made in 1960. Well, they did just go ahead and tell you that heating system is now going to be like 61 years old.
Right.
They're not, if it's working, they're not going to want to negotiate a new heating system because it's functioning, because they told you it was old, even though your inspector is going to say, hey, that type of heating system might last like 40 years on average. It's probably, beyond its design lifespan or some language like that. We recommend planning for replacement, which I would write on a 60-year-old boiler. But if they told you that, even though it's old, even though your inspector's telling you that you're going to need to replace it soon, you knew that condition basically when you made your offer. So that kind of is off the table.